Hello there guys, welcome to another of my live videos. So just going to give you my match reaction for the Newcastle Manchester United game that ended Newcastle United 1, Manchester United 0 at St James's Park. Matty Longstaff's goal was enough to give Newcastle a victory, and of course their second win of the season. Actually, Matty Longstaff scored on his Premier League debut. So now this is our third loss this season in 8 league games. I think we are now just 2 points above relegation, and I think it's now 16 away games, that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's had at Manchester United without a win. So it's now basically, looking, it's coming from bad to worse. And I think now, we are, battling, facing a relegation battle, if I'm going to be quite honest with you. But again, another abysmal performance for Manchester United. I don't think there was one good individual performance. I thought Rashford was atrocious. I thought McTominay was poor. I thought Fred was poor in that midfield and that. And we didn't really create anything in the game. Again, I think it's now 2 games now we've had in a row where we failed to register a shot on target. I think the only chances I can recall Manchester United having yesterday was the Harry Maguire header, and I think the Andres Pereira chance. But I think prior to that, Manchester United didn't really create anything. Couldn't string 2 or 3 passes together. There was no tenacity about. We struggled to hold on to the ball, and it was just an absolute abysmal performance and that. And we know that obviously that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is not going to last as Manchester United manager. And I think the only reason that Manchester United are sticking with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer at this present time, because obviously he was a club legend and that. And I think if it would have been any other manager now, I think he would have been sacked by now. But obviously now the vast majority or all the Manchester United fans now are going to be demanding him out of the football club and that. But in a way, I do feel sorry for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, because I thought the club put him in a difficult position basically. Because I actually said towards the back end of last season, and I think I also did say it earlier on this season, and I said it quite recently, that I don't think we should have given Ole Gunnar Solskjaer the job. I think we should have waited until the end of last season, or we should have waited at some point until this season, to decide whether to give him the job or not. And don't get me wrong, I do love Ole Gunnar Solskjaer a lot. He was a great player for Manchester United for 11 years, and that he flourished under Alex Ferguson's guidance. But I've got to be honest, he isn't good enough, to be a manager in that. And I did say, his tenure, will not become successful at Manchester United and that. But Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has been at the club now overall for around just over 10 months and that. And obviously we recommended Solskjaer in December of last year, following a dismissal of Jose Mourinho. And we know that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer did well in that 3-month period, when he was the interim manager. Obviously, we won the vast majority of our games. He exceeded expectations. But, since he got the job in March earlier on this year, everything, of course, has just seemed to all gone wrong. But, I think the blame stems from everybody, basically. So I think it is a mixture in that aspect. I think, you can blame the board. I think the vast majority of the blame does stem from the board, because I think the board are a liability. Also, quite a lot of the blame does stem from Ed Woodward. Quite a lot of the blame stems from Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, because his tactics in that are questionable. And I do admit, we are tactically inept. And I think also, some of the blame does stem from a lot of players, because obviously, a lot of them are underperforming. We haven't won away from home, since the PSG game last season. But yeah, and look at the amount of money that's been spent at Manchester United in the last 6 to 7 years. Since the Alex Ferguson era, a hell of a lot of money has been invested into the football club, and it just always shows spending big on players and getting them Glasgow players. Doesn't always assure you success in that. But yeah, I think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer now does need to leave the football club and that. Even though recent reports did say that despite our bad start to the season, Man United are still backing Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. I still think there's certain people out there saying we need to give him more time, to obviously make further more investment, to see what else, obviously, to see who we can recommend into the football club and that. Solskjaer did recommend 3 good signings to the club during the summer. Obviously, we spent over £140 million on Daniel James and Wan-Bissaka, and of course on Harry Maguire. But obviously we know that wasn't enough. And during the summer, we didn't address all the problematic areas. But Solskjaer, just hasn't got that managerial experience, to the highest level. Obviously, he won a couple of Norwegian titles and mould. He had a really short tenure with Cardiff, but he hasn't really got that managerial experience as Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. And actually now we are enjoying our worst start to a Premier League season for 3 decades. But I think it's been now confirmed that Solskjaer's record after 29, 30 games is it? It's actually no worse than Jose Mourinho's. So it's actually now worse under the Ole Gunnar Solskjaer era than it was under the Jose Mourinho era. It's actually now worse under the Solskjaer era than it was under the David Moyes era. We know that obviously David Moyes came to Manchester United after Ferguson's retirement. Obviously, Ferguson, recommended him in because obviously, they were both Scottish. And David Moyes obviously only had a short tenure at Manchester United. He only had around 10 months at the football club. He's actually, the manager to have the shortest tenure with the football club since the Alex Ferguson era. But we finished 7th under the David Moyes era, and that's actually the lowest we've finished since the Alex Ferguson era. And I think now we are sitting 12th in the league. And I think this club will continue to go downhill. Whilst of course we have still got Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in charge, but they're just not playing for the team. They don't look interested. We're not performing nowhere near to the standards as I expected, to be quite honest with you. But I think we've been dreadful mainly all season. I said you can maybe pinpoint certain games out this season that arguably Manchester United should have won. I think there's been around 3 games this season where we've been winning 1-0 at half time, but we still haven't managed to win. A lot of people said we were lucky to win on the opening day against Chelsea, by 4 goals to 0. But yeah, it's just really, really poor. And I haven't seen any improvements whatsoever under Solskjaer, than what I saw, under Mourinho, Louis van Gaal, and of course David Moyes and that. And Solskjaer is our 4th permanent manager, since the Alex Ferguson era. And like I did initially say, we haven't really got the structure, to keep sacking managers and that. We're not really known for the sacking football club, despite the fact that we've already sacked 3 managers since the Alex Ferguson era. And I do want Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's tenure, to become successful at Manchester United, but I just think, he needs to leave the football club. I said us getting rid of Solskjaer now, or just before Christmas, I don't think it would solve much problems at Manchester United. Who's going to come in as Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's replacement? The club obviously going to reignite their interest in Mauricio Pochettino, because don't forget, before we actually recommended Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in, we did go in for Mauricio Pochettino for quite some time. I do believe Pochettino's got around a 32 million release clause, so he did say at the time we was in for him, would have had to pay a compensation of around £32 million to get him in. But at the time we was in for Pochettino, obviously he had no intentions of leaving Tottenham. And I also believe that Pochettino is under serious pressure now with Tottenham. Obviously reflecting on Tottenham's bad start to the season, obviously lost 3-0 to Brighton during the weekend. And I think if Pochettino obviously gets sacked as Tottenham manager and he gets the opportunity to come to Manchester United, I think he will grasp that opportunity. A lot of people actually believe that Pochettino would be the right candidate for Manchester United. A lot of people believe he would suit the Strappens and that of the football club. And we know Pochettino has not run out in terms of silverware, but he's well Premier League proven, because now he's into his 6th season with Tottenham. He's been at Tottenham 5 years. He's good at developing young players. His philosophy in that seems to be good. So I do think he would be the right manager to turn things around at Manchester United. Don't forget, before we recommended Solskjaer in, we was also in for Zinedine Zidane, who of course is from we was in for Zinedine Zidane. I think the time we was in for him, he was actually managerless, if I'm right, with Zinedine Zidane. Don't forget, there's been a lot of reports from the Italian press recently saying that we've been interested in Massimiliano Allegri, obviously the former Juventus manager. Obviously Massimiliano Allegri obviously served around 5 years with Juventus. Obviously he's so far spent the entirety of his managerial career in Italy, also spent the entirety of his playing career in Italy, but he reportedly said we've made him as our primary candidate to replace Solskjaer at the football club. So who would you recommend in to replace Ole Gunnar Solskjaer at Manchester United? But the one I do credit Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in certain aspects in that he has got a lot of faith in his young players in that, and obviously he did get rid of a lot of the deadwood during the summer and that, despite the fact now a lot of players have left since Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's arrival. I still believe these more players that do need to be moved on at the football club. I think basically we should get rid of them all basically in that, and we're just not performing good enough. You've got players on big contracts at Manchester United. You've obviously got Rashford on around 300 grand a week. He's not performing to the standards as we all expected in that. And analysing his performances this season, he's obviously been very, very poor. You've obviously got Pogba on just under 300 grand a week. Recent reports have actually said now he's demanding 600 grand a week if he's to renew his contract term in the club. He's played the vast majority of our games this season, and he's been very, very poor. I think the vast majority of the team's been very, very poor, if I'm going to be quite honest with you. Lingard has been very, very poor this season. He's on around, 100 grand a week, and reflects on these stays at the football club. He should be putting much more better performances out. But I think the vast majority of the players have been very, very poor. I think there's only certain ones, that have actually performed quite well in that. But for me, I do believe Manchester United do need at least 3, maybe 4, world-class signings if we are to be back, to being a competitive elite level football club. But Ole Gunnar Solsjaker has actually, come out and admitted that, it would be, he's said now basically, it's even going to be hard for us, to get into that top 6. Obviously, that's how bad it's gone. Because I didn't just say towards the back end of last season, and I think I also mentioned to you at the start of this season that our expectations this season, obviously, will be to finish in that top 4. And obviously, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has got to exceed these expectations, because obviously we want to get back into the Champions League, because obviously last season we failed to qualify for the Champions League, and I think we're enjoying a worse season this season, than what we saw last season, because last season was bad enough. We finished 6th last season, and I actually think we're going to finish lower than 6th this season. But I think with our failure to qualify for the Champions League, I think that's one of the reasons, that's one of the main reasons that went against us in the summer transfer window, because obviously if you're not in Champions League football, obviously it's going to be harder to attract players to the elite level. And that we do know that obviously Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is making plans for the January transfer window, if he's still here by January, that is, and that obviously he's identified the areas we know where obviously he thinks Manchester United do need to strengthen up. But in my opinion, the board need to assure structural changes at the football club, and whether they can assure these structural changes or not, I do not know, to be quite honest with you. But we've been absolutely appalling this season. I think we've now only won 1 of our last 7 league games, and Newcastle could have won more than 1-0 yesterday. I think they also hit the crossbar in the first half, and I think the Longstaff brothers totally embarrassed McTominay and Fred. My overarching view of McTominay is, I thought he had a really bad game yesterday, but I think prior to that, I think, to be fair to McTominay, I think he's actually performed really, really well this season. And like I said, in regards to McTominay being a long-term solution for Manchester United, obviously I have got element of concerns about that. The question is, can he keep the consistency up and that? But he had one bad game yesterday. Did McTominay. Fred, I thought he was also very, very poor. My opinions on Fred is, I think he needs to be given more time at the football club, because don't forget, Fred has only been at Manchester United since last summer. Obviously, we paid around just under £50 million for him and that. But I thought, I don't know if he'll become a success at Manchester United. Maybe not. But I think these are a couple of games this season, in my opinion, where he actually has played quite well. Where he's actually played quite well. And that. But yeah, it's just absolutely atrocious in that. And like I did initially say, I said regardless of who our manager is, we're never going to replicate, what we did under Alex Ferguson. We're never going to replicate what we did under Ferguson. No one is ever, going to follow Alex Ferguson's legacy, and that's obviously Manchester United. That's something Manchester United, of course, have got to accept. But like I said, Alex Ferguson, didn't win out in his first 4 years at the football club. When we first recommended him in from Aberdeen, was it back in 1984, 1985? But we know back in the old generation that managers got the time that they would like. We know now at this day and age, the managers don't get the time, of course, that they are currently demanding, because we do know now the boards are a lot more ruthless. But after that 4 years, Ferguson, look what he went and accomplished. Obviously, we had 20 odd years of success under him, but we'll never be ever the team, that we was under Alex Ferguson. But I say, reflect on our bad performances. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is definitely accountable for them. To me, he's just clueless. He doesn't have a clue, to be honest with you. I don't want him to be sacked as Manchester United manager, because I do love him a lot. But Solskjaer, had that proven pedigree as a player. He really had that proven pedigree as a player, and that obviously one of his most iconic moments as a player. player. Obviously, was back in 1999, of course, when he did win the club the treble. That's obviously, the club's greatest achievement. But I did say, reflect on the history of this football club, because we are the most successful team in England historically. Also reflecting, on the money that's been invested into the football club. We should be much more of commanding a position, than winning now. But we're definitely not going to get that top 4 this season. I don't even think we're going to get the top 6. I think we could maybe finish 7, could finish 8, could finish 9th. A lot of people believe, we could actually get relegated. I won't say we'll get relegated. I think the club's too big in that, to get relegated. I think the last time Manchester United were relegated was back in 1974, which is around what, 44, 45 a year ago? Is it, or 46 years ago now, the last time, Manchester United were relegated? But I don't see the club, getting relegated, to be quite honest with you. But like I did say, you can still quite frankly say, Ole Gunnar Solsjaker, though, is in the process still in the process of rebuilding this Manchester United squad. Because obviously, this has only been Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's first summer as Manchester United manager. But like I said, the vast majority of these players are Jose Mourinho's players and that. So obviously Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's inheriting the vast majority of them. And like I said, one mistake, Alex Ferguson made was obviously, recommending David Moyes. And I think, if we'd have recommended Jose Mourinho win after Ferguson's retirement, now as I do keep mentioning, I think it would have been a different scenario with Manchester United, in my opinion. It would have been a different scenario with the football club. I just think we recommended Jose Mourinho win too late and that. Obviously, Jose Mourinho is the longest serving manager we've had, since the Alex Ferguson era. Obviously, Jose Mourinho served 2.5 years at Manchester United. Now, I did give the reasons, obviously, why it didn't work out under Jose Mourinho, because obviously, Jose Mourinho had bad disputes with the board, he had bad disputes with the top players. Obviously, the board weren't backing the signings, that he did want to recommend to the football club last summer. Obviously, there was the philosophy wasn't right. It was part of the bus football under Jose Mourinho. Then these are the reasons, why it didn't work out under him. And obviously, despite the fact he won the Europa League and the League Cup in his first season, it just didn't work out under him. Mourinho spent just under £400 million, was it, at the football club. Obviously, he recommended 11 players in. Obviously, under Louis van Gaal, I think he served, just over a year at Manchester United. Obviously, he brought a lot of players in, did Louis van Gaal. And like I said, it didn't work out under Louis van Gaal. I actually had this same sort of level of hatred for Louis van Gaal than I did David Moyes. But with Louis van Gaal, he didn't have the right sort of philosophy. Obviously, the time we got Louis van Gaal in, obviously he had that proven pedigree because he did really, really well at Bayern Munich and that, but he didn't succeed at Manchester United. So I think, due to our inconsistency, in my opinion, of course, everyone, is to blame. The players have to take responsibility. The manager has to take responsibility. I think, the board as well are clueless. Ed Woodward, of course, has got to take some responsibility. But in my opinion, I don't think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was backed enough, during the summer. He wasn't backed enough, as the actual board assured that he would have been backed. But I think he did confirm at the start of this season that regardless of what happens this season, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's job, should be safe at least until May. But yes, I do want him now out with the football club and that. I don't want him to go, but I think he just basically needs to go in that because I just thought nothing basically is going to turn around at Manchester United. No, let's be honest with you, but I said everything needs to improve. Our home form needs to improve. Our away form needs to improve. We need to score more goals. We've only managed 9 goals in 8 league games so far this season. I think style of play needs to improve because the brand of football is absolutely atrocious. We're not even creating chances, and it's just an absolute embarrassment. It's just basically an absolute embarrassment. To be quite honest with you. Definitely, I think further more investment is needed in the squad. Don't get me wrong, but I think analysing our squad, it is actually a good squad. They're just not playing. They're just not gelling together and we have got some good players in that squad. That should be performing much better, to be quite honest with you. And when Solskjaer did recommend 3 players during the summer now, when we recommended them 3 players in, obviously we thought there was going to be improvements this season with Manchester United and to be fair, I think Daniel James, Bissaka and Harry Maguire have all done really, really well for the vast majority of this season. That they've done really, really well. Obviously we have got some injuries as well, but obviously that's not an excuse. Obviously I think the players that are injured now, they all should be back, or the vast majority of them should be back back for the game against Liverpool, after the international break. But, Solskjaer did say in his press conference, prior to this game against, Newcastle, I like his honesty, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, because he's got a lot of honesty in that, he basically, said that, we haven't been good enough this season so far, he said, we haven't had the best execution, he also mentioned, he's aware that it's a new era, Solskjaer, he's aware that, the club have had so much success and that, we've had so much success, the football club, but he knows now it's a new era, he says basically, we're not back in the 90s, obviously, we've got different players, different groups that obviously, we are building, and he did also mention in the press conference that, we have, there isn't many clubs that have our stature of playing the young players, of course, like we do, because I think the vast majority of the young upcoming players have obviously been given their chances so far this season. But I still believe, in my opinion, there's still quite a lot of players that do need to leave the football club, because don't forget, around 7 players have now left Manchester United since Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's arrival. Obviously, we saw, Valencia obviously left the football club at the end of last season, and a lot of other players left, and obviously Italy's been a popular destination for the vast majority of our players this summer. And I think one mistake as well the football club did make was obviously getting rid of Ander Herrera, because I think Ander Herrera, was arguably, one of our best players, since the Alex Ferguson era, and we shouldn't have got rid of him. And obviously the club as well let him go on a free transfer, and that we're known for doing that in recent years. Like I said, there's been prime examples of it this summer. We seem to overpay for players, and then when it comes to sanctioning them, when it comes to axing them, should I say, then, we let them go for next to nothing. So in that aspect, that's a very, very bad business, from the football club. Darmian left, obviously Lukaku and Sanchez both left, and I think, we look now exposed in that attacking line, following the dismissal of Romelu Lukaku and Alexis Sanchez and that. And I think we definitely need a striker, and I think that's Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's priority, to recommend the striker in, in January and that. But for me, would I stick with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer? Probably not now. I did initially say, maybe we do need to give him at least a couple more windows, to see who else he can recommend into the football club. I think if Solskjaer is to be still here by January, I think, he wants to stick to the policy of recruiting young British players, like he did do, of course, earlier on in the summer. I do believe, though, I think Anthony Martial has been a big miss in that attacking line. Obviously, Martial enjoyed a really, really good start to this season. Obviously, before he got injured, I think he should be back for the Liverpool game. No, Martial's been out with a thigh injury, and obviously Martial is 23 years of age. Obviously, we do know that Martial, of course, has still got a lot of development in him. Hasn't quite yet emulated to that level. But yeah, and I think Martial, will succeed at Manchester United, in my opinion. Obviously, he got a new contract back in January, so Martial's on around $200,000 a week, and I think he's doing really, really. I think he did really, really well. Obviously, before he got injured and that. But Martial now is into his 5th season as a Manchester United player. Obviously, he scored over 50 goals for the club in all competitions and that. But yeah, I think he's now close to regaining full fitness. And like I said, I think Anthony Martial is more effective in that central position, because that's where you mainly see the best of Anthony Martial. And, they are same, Martial and Rashford, because they can both play in the same positions, they can both play centrally, they can play out wide, so they are compatible in that aspect and that. But yeah, and like I said, with Luke Shaw, now obviously, he's been a big miss. Obviously, Luke Shaw is our first choice left back. Obviously, Luke Shaw's also missed the last 6 games for Manchester United in all competitions. Obviously, like I said, Luke Shaw also came off injured in a 2-1 defeat to Crystal Palace. I think he's also close to regaining full fitness in that. But analysing the majority of Luke Shaw's career, to be fair, I think he has, been mainly consistent. He's had some bad spells. He had a bad spell under Mourinho. He also had a bad spell. Well, he's had quite a few injuries as a Manchester United player, but I think, prior to that, I think, he's done mainly well as Luke Shaw. Won the double player of the season last season. Obviously, We do know that obviously Wan-Bissaka is out with illness. I think Wan-Bissaka, you could arguably say he's been one of our most consistent signings this season. He has been out with illness, but definitely should be back for the Liverpool game. So Wan-Bissaka now has missed the last 3 games in all competitions for Manchester United. And Jesse Lingard, don't forget, he came off with a hamstring injury in the 0-0 draw against Alkmaar in the Europa League and that. And I think Alkmaar's probably I think I'm going to pinpoint that game as the worst performance so far this season, but I don't think Newcastle is too far behind it, to quite honest with you. The Alkmaar game was just as bad as the Newcastle game and that, but like I mentioned earlier on in the video, I think it's now that our last 2 games we have actually failed to register a single shot on target. Obviously you got Paul Pogba still out with injury. He also should be back for the Liverpool game. Obviously Paul Pogba is being further assessed, obviously, due to the recurrence of his foot injury, that he had sustained in the 1-1 draw with Southampton earlier on in the season. And obviously, I've been very, very disappointed with Paul Pogba, because Paul Pogba hasn't performed to the standards as we all expected. And that, I think Paul Pogba, analysing the majority of his Man United career since he rejoined from Juventus back in 2016, he has actually been mainly inconsistent, obviously in comparison to his time at Juventus. And I do believe that Paul Pogba's on his way out of the football club. I think he'll, leave in January. If he doesn't leave in January, I think he will leave the football club next summer. Obviously, central defend. Obviously, Eric Bay, one of our central defenders. Obviously, he's out until the new year as well. Or is it till the end of December? I think he's one of the players, that the club could consider getting rid of in January next summer or sometime in the future. Obviously, reflecting on the amount of injuries he has sustained as a Manchester United player. Not only with I don't think the injuries have only affected his career. I think also with his fallout under managers and that. Eric Bay, of course, is now into his 4th season at the football club. Fossil Mento, I know he's obviously still out with injury. So, like I did say, we've still got injuries, but that's no excuse. Obviously, we have got a lot of young players in the squad, that are developing and trying to improve in that. But obviously, we know that not all the young upcoming players are going to become a success at Manchester United. Obviously, we know that. I think definitely Mason Greenwood, I think he'll become a success at the football club. Again, Mason Greenwood didn't start yesterday. Mason Greenwood has not yet started one game from the start in the Premier League. I think he did come on as substitute, Mason Greenwood. Obviously, he can play him on the right, but I think he's better in that number 9. So I did say in that aspect, I think he's a much better solution than Marcus Rashford, especially now at this present time and that, because the games Mason Greenwood has played this season, well, the vast majority of them, I think he's really, really hit the ground running. He's made 6 substitute appearances now this season. Obviously, Mason Greenwood scored in the games he started against FC Astana and Rochdale, so came up with that moment of quality. But Mason Greenwood just, we need a striker, because obviously Mason Greenwood's still only very, very young. He's 18 years of age, just turned 18, but by the time he's 23, 24, I think he can become a world class centre forward, if I'm going to be quite honest with you. But yeah, and it's impossible to leave him out of the team. When he keeps if he keeps the consistency up and if he keeps scoring, he's obviously been assured more minutes under his belt. But to be fair to Greenwood, I think he's done well in the games he's played in this season. But I think maybe some of the young players do need to be loaned out and that, because maybe they're not good enough to represent Manchester United. Maybe it'll be beneficial for their career, obviously, in that aspect as well. It will gain them more experience. I've got element of concerns about Chong, and now he's one of the young upcoming players I've got a concern about. He's totally comparison to Mason Greenwood. Chong hasn't played much games this season. I think he's played a couple of times in that. But yeah, I think maybe we do need to consider loaning him out. Chong actually had the opportunity to go out on loan this summer. Don't forget, he had received loan offers from PSV and his former club Feyenoord, but obviously he had turned these loan offers down. Like I said, with Tuan Zebe, he actually started at centre-back yesterday alongside Harry Maguire. Victor Lindelof was rested, surprisingly. I thought Lindelof, would have played. Tuan Zebe, like I said, I think the majority of the games he's played in so far this season, to be fair, he has done quite well. And I probably think, Tuan Zebe, will become a success at Manchester United, if I'm going to be quite honest with you. He has been playing regularly quite recently. Don't forget he played at left-back against Arsenal. He played on left back against Arsenal and all that. But yeah, something needs to improve at Manchester United. I think we need to see fundamental changes. But yeah, and there's nothing much really more I can say about that. But I think, players that need to go, definitely Rojo's one of them. I think he definitely needs to leave the football club. I think Matic, I don't think he's good enough. Ashley Young, I think this should be Ashley Young's now last season as a Manchester United player. Rashford, I think we need to consider moving him on if he continues with the bad run of form and that. I don't think we'll move Rashford on. I think Man United, the club will give Rashford obviously more time because he's still only 21, 22 years of age, so still got a lot of development in him. But mainly Rashford has enjoyed a difficult time this season at Man United. Also was poor in the last couple of months of last season, but mainly enjoyed a difficult time this season in comparison to his time, when he first broke into the senior squad and that. And we know so far Rashford has spent the entirety of his career with Manchester United and that, but obviously he won't orchestrate on spending the rest of his career with Manchester United. Also, my opinions on David De Gea. Obviously, people have regarded him as one of the best goalkeepers in the world. Overall, you can say that, but I don't think he is now, to be quite honest with you, because he hasn't, again, he hasn't performed to the standards as we all expected. Obviously, David De Gea, he's on, 375 grand a week at the football club. He's actually the highest paid goalkeeper now in the world in that. And, he hasn't, been good enough. I thought he was poor in the last couple of months of last season. And I think for the majority of this season so far, David De Gea, has, been very, very poor. Obviously, David De Gea, again, another long servant. He's been here 8 years. He's now into his 9th season as a Manchester United player. Don't get me wrong, he's had, 7.5 good years. But, I think in, the last, 6-7 months maybe, I think, he has been below par as David De Gea. But yeah, he's someone else, we've got a big contract. And I think, like I mentioned earlier on in the video, I think, definitely Paul Pogba, he's on his way now in the football club in January and that. Like he updated you on one of my videos yesterday. Obviously, Manchester United have become infuriated with Paul Pogba's contract because, like I said, recent reports have suggested out saying that Paul Pogba is demanding a substantial 600 grand a week from the football club if he's to commit his long-term future in Manchester United. And obviously, 600 grand a week equates to around £30 million a year, and that even though probably Man United have got the financial power to meet them wage demands because we are a massive club, with massive revenues. I just don't see us, willing to give him that amount of money. He's demanding a substantial amount. I think we have discussed with Paul Pogba's agent Mini Raiola over the possibility of renewing his contract, and obviously to discuss Paul Pogba's future and that at the football club. But I think in January or next summer he'll go to Real Madrid because I think Real Madrid is his preference. Don't forget Paul Pogba was relentlessly linked to a move to Real Madrid throughout the course of the summer, but his move to Real Madrid of course never materialised, and I think that he didn't materialise, obviously reflecting on the substantial amount we was demanding because we wanted around £180 million. Obviously Real Madrid were not willing to pay that and that, but definitely Real Madrid will reignite their interest in January. Other teams were in for him as well. Barcelona inquired about getting him. There was talks about him making a return back to Turin. I think also, PSG inquired about getting him. But yeah, it was mainly, Real Madrid that were in for Pogba. And Paul Pogba has still got 2 years left on his contract at Manchester United with an option, to extend it by a further year. And as it stands at the moment, he's on around 290 grand a week. So in that aspect, he is one of the highest paid players at the football club and that. We have seen Paul Pogba at his best as a Man United player. We mainly saw the best of him in that 3-month period when Solsjaker came in as the interim manager. That's when we mainly saw the best of Paul Pogba. But for large portions of his Man United career, he has been mainly inconsistent. And, we paid £89 million for him. Obviously, he is our most expensive signing is Paul Pogba. But obviously, if we're willing to let him go, obviously, we're going to want to, make a huge profit on the player and that. But Real Madrid themselves spent £300 million during the summer on 5 players. They did sell some players, so they did, get some of the money back in that. But, it hasn't only been this summer that, Paul Pogba had been subjected to intense speculation. Obviously, reflecting back last summer, there was a lot of talks about Paul Pogba leaving the football club. Obviously, reflecting on his poor relationship with Jose Mourinho and that. Paul Pogba, he's 26 years of age, so he has still got a lot of development minimum and that. But yeah, Solskjaer knows how much of an imperative player he is, but I think, he's definitely, going to be leaving the football club. And like I said to you, we are, making plans for the January transfer window and that. And like I mentioned to you on my recent videos, that, these quite a few players on our agenda, who Man United will probably go in for in January and that. Obviously, there's been recent talks of Callum Wilson from Bournemouth. There's been talks about, Mario Mandzukic from Juventus, reportedly. They're two of our priorities who we're going to go in for in January and that. Well, it says that, so Ole Gunnar Solskjaer were interested in recommending in. Obviously, we're looking to recruit a replacement for Romelu Lukaku. But I do believe, some of the players we was in for during the summer, probably more than likely, we will reignite our interest in some of them in January as well. Maybe we'll leave some until next summer. But there's still areas in that squad, that do need to be addressed. And analysing our recruitment policy, it isn't too good, to be quite honest with you. And I think Solskjaer was talking about our recruitment policy during the summer. But we haven't been competitive enough in the last, 3 to 4 windows, because we haven't been getting the players, of course, that we do want. But like I said, in all the managerial areas, around £800 million, I think at an estimated guess around £800 million has been invested into the football club and that. And, it's just basically not good enough. And Newcastle, 19th in the league, obviously, before the game kicked off and that. Newcastle are a very, very poor team, and I think, Newcastle, will be disappointed, obviously, that, that Rafa Benitez resigned back in June, which was obviously early on this summer, because obviously Rafa Benitez is one of the greatest managers. Obviously won a lot of silverware and that, especially when he was at Liverpool, and I think he was doing a good job at Newcastle, was Benitez. But obviously they recommended Steve Bruce, and obviously Newcastle will be, over the moon with a victory yesterday in that. But obviously they're not going to do out this season. Steve Bruce, I don't think he'll succeed at Newcastle, because I just don't think he's good enough as manager, if I'm going to be quite honest with you. But yeah, that was an embarrassment yesterday, by Manchester United, and there's just nothing in the team. There's no creativeness, there's no tenacity, there's no work ethic, we're not creating chances, we're not stringing 2 or 3 passes together, can't keep all onto the ball. It's just an absolute embarrassment and that. And, the players have to take a long, hard look at themselves. Well, I think the players, a lot of the players, do need reality check. But, seeing our forms so far this season just indicates, where this football club is at the moment under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. And, something does need to change. And, to start with, I think we need to get rid of Solskjaer, obviously get rid of more players in January or next summer, and obviously bring more players in and that. And so obviously now Massimiliano Allegri could come in. I don't think he will though. Pochettino could come in and that. Obviously if Pochettino was to come in, I think obviously the club would assure that he'd get a substantial amount to spend in January or next summer and that. Yeah, nothing much really more to say. And I do believe that, Solskjaer did get the right amount of money during the summer, in my opinion. I think he got from between £200 to £250 million to spend. But Solskjaer did confirm at the start of the summer that he wanted to recommend at least 5 new additions to the squad. This is obviously what he had said. But yeah, very, very embarrassing performance. So anyway, guys, that's your match reaction and everything to update you today. Drop your comments, likes, below on the channel. If you do, consider subscribe as always. And take care, God bless, and I'll see you all again very, very soon. Thanks for watching.